Welcome everybody. Welcome to the Collective Trauma Summit opening event. We're pleased, very pleased to welcome poet Kim Rosen for a poetic invocation. And welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Good morning from California, where I am standing on the traditional territories of the coastal Miwok people. To me, poetry is a form of non-denominational prayer or incantation or chant or intention. There are those who say that poetry is a technology of the sacred because it some poems hold an invisible medicine bag, including and beyond the meaning of rhythm, of music among the words, of heartbeat, of breath, that affects our biology and can create conditions within us where we can fall through the outer layers of our lives, the outer layers of our daily thoughts, into a deeper and more direct way of knowing, way of experiencing. I like to say that poetry uses the mind to unlock the mind. And in some cases, weaving poems with music can vastly enhance that alchemy. So here, at the brink of this extraordinary feast we will partake of over the next 9 days, I invite you to join me in dropping through the outer layers into the inner self. I offer a poem by Stanley Kunitz called The Layers, interwoven with music by Jami Sieber, whose music we have been listening to prior to this opening. And I invite you perhaps to close your eyes, lean back. Let yourself be carried by this music and poetry through the layers of your own being right now, so that we can begin from within together. This is a poem called The Layers by Stanley Kunitz, with music by Jami Sieber. I have walked through many lives, some of them my own. And I am not who I was, although some principle of being abides, from which I struggle not to stray. When I look back, as I am compelled to look before I can proceed on my journey, I see the milestones dwindling towards the horizon and the slow fires trailing from the abandoned campsites over which scavenger angels wheel on heavy wings. Oh, I have made myself a tribe out of my true affections, and my tribe is scattered. How shall the heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? In a rising wind, the manic dust of my friends, those who fell along the way, bitterly stings my face. Yet I turn, exulting somewhat, with my will intact to go wherever I need to go. And every stone on the road precious to me. In my darkest night, when the moon was covered and I roamed through wreckage, a nimbus-clouded voice directed me. Live in the layers, not on the litter. Live in the layers, not on the litter. Though I lack the art to decipher it, no doubt the next chapter in my book of transformations is already written. I am not done with my changes. When I look back as I am compelled to look before I can proceed on my journey, I see the milestones dwindling toward the horizon. Oh, I have made myself a tribe out of my true affections, and my tribe is scattered. How shall the heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? Yet I turn. I turn, exulting somewhat, with my will intact to go wherever I need to go, and every stone on the road precious to me. In my darkest night, when the moon was covered, a nimbus-clouded voice directed me. Live in the layers, not on the litter. Though I lack the art to decipher it, no doubt the next chapter in my book of transformations is already written. I am not done with my changes. That's music by Jami Sieber from a forthcoming release called Feast of Losses, and a poem by Stanley Kunitz. Those credits will be posted with this video. Now I am pleased to welcome the host of this Collective Trauma Summit, Thomas Hübl.
Oh, thank you, Kim. This was so beautiful. So beautiful. I want to give it just a moment to let the beauty unfold of what you shared with us. And thank you. I love, we are doing this now for years, and thank you for your contributions all the time. It creates such a beautiful depth to start with. Yeah, every stone on the road precious to me. First of all, I want to welcome everybody who tunes in with us here. This is our kind of opening ceremony. Ceremony is something that's, I think, that has stepped into the background in modern society, but actually is such an important part of our healing journey. So I see our opening event and our summit as a ceremony. And as a ceremony to do exactly like what the poem also kind of expressed, like how can we walk together, and how, like I often say, when you want to create a movement, you need to gather your tribe. And how do you gather your tribe? It's meeting people that don't need to be convinced. The opposite, actually, it's people, there's a confluence of hearts. Like when we come together and we know and we enjoy the experience that's unfolding through us. And I think that's what is my experience. Also with our hosts that are here today, Ruby and Laura, and Angel in video form, which we will have a conversation later. So I feel this with you all, and also Kim and our entire team in the background, of course. But also with all the speakers. And we will discuss with you a little bit some of the pearls and the essence of our conversations. For me, the summit is like a gift that I gave to myself because I have so many amazing conversations throughout this time and the month before, and they are all inspiring. They're all different. They all show the beauty of where difference and universality come together. We talk about universal principles of life, of trauma, of pain, of suffering, but also of healing, of coming together, of shared community, of spirit that we share in different expressions. And I think the amazing diversity within the summit, and also like a language that we develop. By honoring each other's languages, we develop a mutual language. And I think that at least is my experience, and we will hear from at least some of the other hosts that had also many conversations, and also in the last years. So I think over 4 years, we gathered our tribe, and we will still continue to gather our tribe. But it's where hearts meet, and we know something that is not just knowledge. We know something bigger, and I think that's exactly what's needed in order to face the massive collective trauma layers in our world that are archaeologically have been inflicted archaeologically, and are still there in our bodies, in our psyches, in our societies. But also the collective trauma layers that are being inflicted while we are trying to heal. There is more trauma going on, and I think in part of the summit we're also exploring how to heal when we are still being hurt. And then the bigger layer of what's the potential collective trauma that is coming with some of the major challenges that are on the way to impact us as humanity and society more and more. But within all of that sounds very kind of demotivating sometimes, and overwhelming and big, and we might say, okay, what can I do as an individual? What can I do in my life to meet the vastness of hurt and pain and recurrent pain in the world? And I think through all the conversations, we see what it means to turn our life into a responsible, like an able to respond response. That we are all kind of able to respond to something that is part of our lives. And I think in many of the conversations, we can see what happens if we take that power to respond and create a path. And everybody creates a bit of a different path, given our intelligence, our circumstances, our histories. But we see how empowering it is to listen to so many different kinds of approaches, so many disciplines, so many amazing ways also, like how life put us on track. I often asked in the summit interviews, what made you walk your path the way you did? And what's the combination of life circumstances and calling, or intelligence, or core motivation? So what calls us, and how does maybe often also trauma set a direction for us in life? And the combination of calling and our own life experiences, and sometimes also traumatic or very traumatic life experiences, show that we can turn that trauma into post-traumatic learning. We can turn that trauma into a path, a contribution, a service in the world, and turn it into our gift. And all the 4 years that I have been in these amazing conversations, again and again and again, I saw the power of life going through the adversity and turning that into a healing journey. And I think that healing journey is for all of us. Everybody has potential healing journey in front of his steps, like the next steps are the unfolding path. And so we see also how different disciplines and languages, but also as Kim shared with us, how poetry, how art is an important voice in speaking the sometimes unspeakable in very different ways that can touch our experience not through the path of language, sometimes through the path of language, but sometimes through visual paths, through music, through all kinds of other channels that allow us to meet ourselves, and to meet the parts in ourselves that have been shut down, that have been locked away, split off, and to invite those into a healing journey. And so this year's summit, our theme is like developing a collective healing movement, because I deeply believe that a lot of our healing modalities are going collective, and we need collective spaces to heal collectively. I find the power of individual healing within collective spaces, like, for example, large groups, and individual healing in the presence and the witnessing of many like-minded people that offer their awareness, their presence, their attunement, their compassion to heal together. And it seems that also many of our speakers discovered in their own way a similar quality in the collective healing path, or on the collective healing path. And so that kind of collective healing doesn't mean that we don't do individual healing work anymore, but we will develop new technologies, I think, that are needed in our time to meet the collective challenges. And as we come together here throughout the summit, that we start to create very vibrant, alive networks, that we see each other's gifts and we contribute to each other's gifts and we support each other to flourish. Because eventually, trauma creates a sense of scarcity. And scarcity it creates jealousy, creates not enoughness, creates me versus you. And I believe, like, the generosity to support each other's flourishing shows that we actually all, deep inside, are wells. We are sources of energy. We bring more energy into this world. We bring more creativity and intelligence into this world. And if we support each other in doing so, we create a flourishing world. So we are actually turning scarcity into generosity. And that's not always easy, because where the scarcity is really scarce, it seems like that's the only reality there is in those moments. It seems it's really like that. Because when we meet our trauma and when we meet our collective trauma, it is very painful. And at the same time, together, we can hold each other when some of us are in the phase where we experience life like that. So that's why I believe healing communities, healing networks, healing collectives are the way we walk into as humanity, or are the development that we walk into. And that's why I find it very exciting to have so many different voices that share in one way or the other that kind of experience, and are also willing to, and were and are also willing to meet their pain. And I think in many of the conversations, many of the speakers also shared their individual journey that was painful, that needed courage to meet our own past and move it forward. And maybe one more thing to say, and then I will just describe a little bit why we talk about collective trauma at all, or what that is the most amazing moments, and there were many like that in the conversations I had, were the ones where the conversation became a mutual birth process of something that has been born through us in that moment. So there was like a fertilization of the conversation that got pregnant with the future. Like the future suddenly was feelable in the conversation as mutual inspiration, as a mutual spark, as something new that has been born in that moment. And I believe as collectives, we are collectively decoding our future, our own becoming. And I often call it, we are downloading our own future by making space for it, by making a space for that creativity to unfold between us that is bigger than what everyone by him or herself could do. And so I think those moments are amazing, because we feel we are actually touching the pulse of life. and something new is unfolding because we came together, because of the relation in that moment. And I think that's a big reward, and that's also an inspiring moment for every one of us to create this kind of spaces within our communities and to advance our collective development. Just a few words about collective trauma, and then I would love to engage in our conversation to do what I was speaking about now. So 4 years ago, we started with the Collective Trauma Summits, and I think it really created a conversation, a global conversation. More and more people speak about collective trauma. There are more and more projects, there's more and more academic research, and I think there's a real movement in that sense that already started and is already on the way. And 4 years ago, 20 years ago, when I started to work on collective trauma fields in the world, and the collective trauma actually taught me by running many groups. So then I saw, wow, it's amazing that all of us have been born into a pre-traumatized world. And that world, that trauma, is a shared cultural agreement, as is the part of us that is integrated, that is like emergent, that is relational. So where we are integrated, we are deeply relational. We are resonating with each other. We are in relation, and we are able to form and build those relational networks. At the same time, we also have been born into a collective trauma field, so that many people, either individually, ancestrally, or collectively, carry trauma. And that creates also societal and cultural agreements that become cultural structures. But those are not emergent. They are often disrelated, and they are often repetitive. So we see the same pain patterns being inflicted again and again, or the same reactions, the same conversations. And that's why I thought it's very important that after 20 years of working on collective trauma issues, it's very important to now enlarge the conversation and look what else is happening in the world that resonates with that, and what are the different streams of work and the different communities and the different approaches that carry competence and knowledge and wisdom. And so that's how the summit arose, and that's why I think for us to collectively become aware of something that is so in the water that we are swimming in, that we need also a collective awareness process to become aware how many ways trauma became so normalized that we don't see it anymore, and that we don't call it that way sometimes. We call it by the names of its symptoms. And so that's why in the conversations and in the collaboration and in the collective healing movement, we are able to make that collective trauma field more and more visible, which means to bring it more and more into the awareness of our shared nervous systems, that we can begin to feel it, that we can begin to address it, and that we can develop more and more technologies that take care of and are a healing impulse. And one of the collective symptoms is talking about. When I feel separate from something, then I look at it from a distance, and then I talk about it, when in fact the real healing movement is relating. And then, as David White in our conversation said, when we do our inner work, and I'm paraphrasing this now, and we integrate something, then our voice becomes revelatory. And I found that so beautiful, that whatever we integrate, we can speak. And then we don't speak about it, we speak it. And when we speak it, it has a transformational power. And so with that, I would love to invite everybody to look at the talks that are really interesting for you, that resonate, and you'll see such a big variety. So I hope whatever is your deeper interest, you will find something that speaks to your path, to your background, and to your maybe also profession and deeper interest. And with this, I want to welcome you, Ruby, and you, Laura, and also Angel in his video form. But first of all, welcome Ruby and Laura. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Thank you, Thomas. It's wonderful to be here again. Thank you.
Same for me here. It's such a joy. Thank you.
I'm so happy. Over the years, we became such a lovely team, and it's also such a fun to do this together. And we are really having a great time producing with our entire team. I think our entire team is amazing and amazingly competent and amazingly wholeheartedly engaged. And it's such a joy also to be months and months in the production. So I really enjoy our collaboration. And Angel, Dr. Angel Acosta needed to cancel shorthand because of family reasons, and but he left us a message, and maybe we can hear his message first, and then we start our conversation.
My dear colleagues, I'm sorry that I'm not there with you right now in that beautiful discussion. I just want to send my love and energy to everybody in the summit, to our current panelists, to the host. Throughout this whole process of interviewing speakers and luminaries in the field, I have been profoundly moved by the largesse and the gargantuan efforts that people are engaging in throughout the world to ensure that we have a planet that we can enjoy and that we can engage in the bounty of its resources through collective healing. I want to say that part of what came up for me throughout all the interviews was just a range of approaches into addressing collective trauma and in cultivating collective healing. I want to heed the advice of Brother Bayo Akomolafe in terms of getting lost and staying lost. So as you're watching and taking in the videos and the speakers, if you feel a sense of needing certainty, if you feel a sense of needing sure answers, take a deep breath. You see, healing won't come from certainty. Healing won't come from one answer. Healing, just like this movement, just like this summit, will come from an assemblage of resources, an assemblage of lineages, a multitude of forces, an array and a variety of people coming together to push the boundaries of our understanding of not just the collective nervous system, but our collective consciousness, our planetary, social, and generative social field. With that, I just want to thank the host. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Digo. Thank you, everybody who was involved. And I just send all my energy as you continue to engage in this robust discussion. And to all the listeners out there, this global healing movement starts with you, your curiosity, your ability to surrender to meet your own suffering. And through that surrender, finding the pieces of compassion and empathy that would allow you to relate to others going through similar experiences. And then together tying a tapestry of relationality and connection. You all take good care. I'll see you all throughout the next few days as you enjoy the summit.
So thank you, Angel. Even if you're not here with us now, you'll hear us. And our gratitude. And we miss you here in the circle. And at the same time, we honor your family commitments. So be blessed. And yes, Ruby and Laura, maybe you want to share a little bit your journey with us throughout the interview, throughout the whole summit development, and also a bit of your learning and what inspired you and whatever seems vibrant. And then we see how we engage in a bit of a conversation around it. So maybe I hand it over to you, Ruby. And
yes, and thank you again. I mean, it's just such a pleasure to be a part of this because I grow so much every year. The team is amazing in terms of matching me with people to interview that just really expand what I know, what I feel, where I go. So, and again, the term alchemy, right, comes to mind. And when you said about people coming together and you bring, right, a wealth, you bring knowledge, but when it's combined, then there's something that's developed that's really special. And so I think for me this year, like the arts really touched me. I spoke to several people engaged in the arts, from Nico building altars to Sarah King, who talked about the importance of large art and how it gets inside your body. And so Kim, I love when you talked about the poetry as a technology of the sacred. And in my work, I work a lot with technology and thinking about how we use it for healing. So to bring in poetry as the technology of the sacred, I think that was really moving and something that I'll take with me as well. And overall, I just feel, and I guess with others, right, who have come here, who are listening at this point, that there is this movement, that there is this collective of individuals who see the world and say it can be better. I think about Dr. King when he says, or when he said, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? And I believe those who are listening and those who we work with, our collaborators, that we insist on that we move towards community.
That's beautiful. Laura.
Ruby, thank you, Thomas. And, you know, just riffing off this move towards community, to me, that is really a very essential part of the summit and the resonances that I hear when you all speak. I was mentioning to Thomas that I was remembering a conversation that he had with cosmologist, evolutionary cosmologist, Brian Swim, about the intelligence of the universe, bringing together single elements and clustering them and allowing them to create this emergent intelligence that is of a different order, that has capacities that the single individuals don't. You know, like atoms coming together and forming molecules that have other properties. And it seems to me that we human beings are being called to do that as well. Our next evolution is as collectives, that when we come together, and we can feel it here, you know, what you were describing, Thomas, this element of something emerging as we're coming together, that emergent space that feels like magic sometimes. To me, that is the place from where the real solutions to what we're coming to face now as humanity will come from. And I think that the place of the summit is really as a point of convergence. And also, you know, from the beautiful poem by Stanley Kunitz that Kim was reading, I don't know if it was this, but I have created myself a tribe out of my true affections. It's this place of gathering for this tribe of our true affections, those of us that feel called to this. You know, as you were saying, Thomas, this is not about, you know, going and grabbing someone by the nose and bringing them here. This is about people whose heart already resonates, that finds joy in coming together. And inside of that, we can meet, you know, I Angel was just saying, where we can surrender to meet to our own suffering together, because there's a power there that we'll bring together. And in my conversations, Selena de Sola particularly was speaking about, really addressing trauma through an ecosystemic lens. So when she's working and her community are working with children, with adolescents, they don't just work with them, they work with the parents, they work with the teachers, with the school environment. So it really is thinking in terms of ecosystems, that we really need to address the water that we're all swimming in, not just the individual. And this implies also that we need to reach out across generations, reach out across others with whom we need to walk together. And Shia Bastida speaks beautifully about the reciprocity with Mother Earth, but also about connecting to the adults. She's 20 years old and already has done so much beautiful work. And I love that she can see that adults have a place to contribute as well. So it's looking for those contributions, and really nobody has all the answers. The more I am in this field, I see and I learn from how complex it is. And I know I will never have all the answers. Nobody will ever have all the answers, because that's not what it's about. It's about coming together with others who are different, who can show and enrich, from other places, the perspectives, and that only together can we truly heal what needs to be healed.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's also that that we are the vessel for the complexity. It's not someone. It's a bigger network that becomes the vessel that can hold the complexity and become the answer. Yeah, that's beautiful. Ruby, you want to add more?
Yeah, so I love, Laura, what you said about the youth, right? And things to be intergenerational. So in a lot of our work, first of all, we talk about what are the gifts and the genius of our young people, right? Like, we want to expose them to STEM and think about other things, but we want to start it with what do they already have, right? What are they already doing? What are they passionate about? What's their purpose? And then kind of layer those things on top. And then we say that we work with the mother, uncle, sister, brother, cousin, Sunday school teacher, like everybody is a part of that ecosystem, and that they have to be engaged in order to get the young people to be where they should, which is flourishing, right? To live to their full potential. And then also another thing we're thinking about when you think about environment, ecosystems, expo zone, right? And so kind of thinking about all the things in a child's environment or even an adult environment that influences them, right? So kind of when you talk about the water, what's all in the water and how can we change the water? And so one way that we're also thinking about that is through the arts, right? And through these campaigns, and again, through things that people are passionate about, and then adding information about trauma, about what it means to flourish, about how to educate students, especially students of color who may be struggling in different ways because of how the culture, right, wants to educate them, but often they're experience life very differently. So how can we bring those experiences to, again, educate them and make sure that they thrive and that they are equipped to lead into what's coming in the future. So I just really can't stress enough in terms of thinking about the whole ecosystem and not seeing children as separate, right, but as embedded in a family, in a community, in a culture, in a nation, right, and then globally, how we're all connected as well.
It's so beautiful, Ruby. And I also feel how important it is and to recognize that there's already wisdom there. When I think of, I'm Mexican, part Indigenous and part Spanish in my roots. And when I look at the plight of Indigenous people, the world over after colonialism, and how much, they already have had to survive. They don't have to wait for us to come along and, they already have profound wisdom about how to do this. And part of what's really exciting for me is this potential of really honoring that wisdom and bringing it into the dialogue with what we are bringing and the future that can then emerge from those conversations. And, with grandmother Flor de Mayo also sharing about, her own calling towards healing, how it was revealed to her from a very, very young age. And I can see that embedded in many of the people that I've met from indigenous communities, and being able to really touch the sacred in us and in how we step into our own place, because everybody has got something to say from where they look at the world. And if our voices get lost, something precious really gets lost. And being able, as you were saying, Thomas, to own my place allows me to then become the voice that can say what I'm here to say. And then that, I love that quote about, then our voices become revelatory. That is so beautiful. So that's one more thing. And poets also, both Monica Suk, who has this incredible capacity to articulate fragmented realities and weave them. Her lineage is one of weavers, weave them with words into a whole that can be relatable, that can become expressible. And that in itself creates healing. And Martín Espada, whose incredible capacity for noticing details and weaving an image of someone who then transforms some abstract information that might just be in our head somewhere, something happened. No, all of a sudden you can see the people and the tattoo they have on their history, and it just becomes real. And then our hearts and our bodies can respond with love before the difficult things that we see.
That's beautiful. That also leads us already to maybe explore a little bit what's your concentrated essence, because when we listen to so many speakers, or we had conversations with so many speakers, what is part of the remedy? You said attunement, feeling seen, being resonant, creating community, being able to be responsive to our future, like to be able to see that the future wants to download itself through us. It just needs a way, it needs a space for it. And what other, when we talk about the collective healing movement, how can we become a remedy? What other, ways and qualities did you hear that you think are important?
Yeah, I'll just really stress the one about, we did a panel, Salubona, right? And kind of we see you from the African tradition and proverb. And really to create change and to understand what's happening and how it's repeated, it really does take getting to know and to understand what's happening with people who are in your very circle. One thing that really struck me about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor was, again, this awakening, and many people turning to me. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't quite understand. And that's part of how oppression is allowed to continue over time and to repeat itself, right? Kind of this frozenness where we don't understand and we can't quite see or even experience individuals' world. So I think that part is really powerful. And again, going to the young people, when I work with them and when my team works with them, we're really trying to sit and to listen, right? And to hear what they say about what they're experiencing when, gunshots are ringing out through their neighborhoods, right? When their friends are dying, when they're failing in school, and other kind of forms of trauma that really affect who they are. So I would say that that ability to see and to hear, and sometimes it's painful, right? And sometimes you want to turn away, sometimes it keeps you up at night, sometimes it makes you cry, right? You kind of feel it throughout your body. But again, the courage, and I think Angel talked about that, to be able to see it and to feel it, and then to think, okay, right? So what do I do? How do I bring my gifts and my talents to kind of address this? And for me, I'm trying to do it both on a kind of public level in terms of working with legislators in Illinois, right? They passed anti-racism legislation to try to, again, when we talk about the water that we swim in, and to uncover these things that have set in motion a society that has advantages and disadvantages, right? And to make sure that people are able to thrive. And so just kind of working on that level, but then also working with individuals who are able to come together. And again, with the emotional emancipation circles, I've said it kind of in some of the other ones, with Enola Air and Cheryl Grills, when they talk about we are each other's medicine, and coming together in those spaces and to say, this is what I feel, this is how I'm being affected, and even ways you may know and ways you may not know, right? What's beautiful about the group is that other people's experience you learn, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I didn't realize that's what we can call it, or I experienced that, but I never made these connections. So, so again, I just think it's really important for me, kind of on different levels, right? The societal, the structural, the policy, all the way down to the group, and then individual in my own life, right? I'm kind of now thinking about what do I need to change? I'm trying to get quiet, which isn't easy, right? For many who know my life, but I'm trying to get quiet and to see what's the next thing that's supposed to emerge. Like, what am I supposed to be lending my gifts and talents to? So I'll stop there.
Beautiful, Ruby. I love, everything that you wove together here. And I would like to add a couple more things. One is the awareness that not everyone heals in the same way, and that the arc of trauma is so huge, particularly collective trauma, that when you're in the middle of it, what you will be needing then is very different from what someone 2 generations down will be needing. It might be too hard for you to speak about what has happened, and that might not be what you need to do. And maybe 1 or 2 generations later, you have to, because you can and you need to. So really understanding that there are no like silver bullet, like this is the one thing you do, and we really, and that's where the listening, to be really attuned, I think is an essential aspect, to stay in the present, to stay in the now with whoever it is that you have before you. And the second thing is, and to arrive with the humility of knowing that we all are here to be transformed. This is not about that, one person has the answer. It's like, we're a system. We all are part of what we're all here to be healed and to be transformed. And unless we arrive with that clarity and humility, we can actually do damage. And I really want to, invite us to consider that it's a matter of responsibility to arrive knowing that you will be transformed if you decide to engage in this process. And that's a good thing. And it might be painful, and sometimes it will be messy, but it's so worth it. So that's the other thing I would love to bring to us, because it does take something, but that's where the love and the community and the connectedness and the clarity of intention that we have to really do this together makes such a difference.
And can I say one more thing? I'm noticing too with the emotional emancipation circles, when they said, like, what ways are we trying to defy the lie, right, of white superiority and Black inferiority? One of the ways, right, the water that we're in. And when we talk about what we plan to do, I noticed that when you speak it, right, you have kind of this witness, those who are witnessing, and then you come back that there's something that happens. Again, this alchemy, this form of transformation where you actually move towards that, and then you hear others who have moved towards what they said they plan on doing. And so again, again, this importance of community, of individuals, of this relational, right, this relational field, I think is critical. And also giving young people, right, that space to do that as well. I'm really looking forward to it. And again, with them driving what they need in the space, them driving what the space should look like, and then us pouring resources into them. One thing we often ask them is, what brings you joy? What makes you happy? And we're compiling that list in hopes to flood their communities, flood their schools, flood their families with those things that bring them joy and happiness, and that make them hopeful.
Well, so beautiful, Ruby. And one more thing that came to mind as I was hearing you is, when we transform and someone witnesses that, that presence that is witnessing is so powerful. And the next time you see that person, that transformation is in the space. The space is alive and it has memory. And I think that leads me, and here I'd love to turn to you also, Thomas, around, there is a sacred dimension to this work. And that witnessing, that consciousness that stays, there's an element of grace that also happens when we do this work. That's not under our control, but that we can bow down to. And that's part of what also is so moving to me, that experience of devotion to this higher order power that keeps us alive, and that is what supports us in that transformation that happens, from the inside out when we're in relation, when we receive something, and all of a sudden it's like light flows through us again. Life comes back to us when we felt so contracted and in such a place of pain, and something really miraculous in a way, can happen then.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. And both of, like, all of what you said, like the deep attunement, how we create relational communities that are attuned and more resonant. And also, like what you mentioned now, Laura, like that we don't see just as an individual hardship. So I, as a separate person, need to heal myself, but that there is an amazing resource in the bigger context that we are part of. And I also, in my conversation with Dan Siegel, he mentioned also the like how we were trained to see the notion of the self as a separate self, versus that the self is what he calls us in his new book, intraconnected. And I also love to like this term intra-existence, that we exist in each other. That when I look at you, Laura, or Ruby, that there is a Ruby and a Laura in Thomas. In my deep perception, there you exist in me. And the more we can feel each other and resonate with each other, we call that intimacy, but we exist in each other. And the other side is also true. If somebody hurt somebody, then we also hurt the person outside, and we also shut down the intra-existence. So we also feel more separate. And so that reopening, or what I love to call it liquefying, that we're actually liquefying the world to become more fluid again. And so I think you both spoke to aspects of the liquefaction, and relationality or relational resonance is one way how a more liquefied, like flowing, that's why we also call it flow states, express themselves. That's beautiful. And I also loved, Ruby, what you said about like how can we also have moments of silence to kind of listen to the updates of our path, because that's also like a communication with our future, that we need sometimes spaces not to end up in habits and habitual working, and that we have ways to connect to also what Otto Scharmer calls like the inspiration in the deep presence. But for this we also need to create environments of presence. So that's like beautiful like aspects of the remedy. Like if the remedy is not one thing, but if the remedy is a collection of principles or qualities that everybody needs a certain combination of to heal, as you said, Laura, like because it's also individual or it's culturally specific what we need. Yeah, over to you both if you want. to add more to you
Yes,
too.
Thomas. Thank you. And when I'm reminded of the lovely opportunity I had to have to interview you for the summit, and you know what you were just mentioning, this liquefaction that starts to allow us to feel both, you know, the presence of ancestral energies and information and patterns that are alive in us now in this moment, you know, and that challenges our sense of you know, as an isolated self living in a fragmented now, where the past is, you know, yesterday and it's gone, and the future is tomorrow, and God knows, you know, we're never going to touch it because it's always tomorrow, and start to feel, no, actually, the present includes the past, and it can be either integrated or not. If it's integrated, then it's a resource. If it's not integrated, then it's a wound or an incomplete developmental process. And then the future becomes this amazing download of inspiration, of something new, of creativity, and being able to dissolve our sense of isolation allows us to access these aspects. And so the healing gets potentiated profoundly by holding ourselves, by being able, that's part of what our minds need to do to dissolve those ideas that we're isolated. And as we open in that uncertainty that can be, you know, can feel kind of wobbly also, that Angel was talking about, if we manage to stay there, what opens up can truly be amazing. So that, and there, you know, the conversation with you, I feel also allowed me to see that more clearly, you know, both in the collective dimension and in the ancestral one. Yeah, and Ruby, I don't know if you'd like to add something more here too.
Yes, and so when I think about the quiet, because when I do get quiet, and even between the little moments when I can get quiet, I think about my ancestors, right? I think about the stories that I have about my ancestors who were enslaved and how they were trying to change this system, right? How they were trying to assert their humanity. And they talked about my family, right? Stories were passed down that late at night in the slave quarters, they would teach each other to read, right? And again, a very bold and radical act, right? Because it could create death, but they knew there was power in that. And then I think about my mother's grandmother, her grandfather was Native American. And one of the stories that come down is how he would kind of dance and sing around a tree, right? And I love nature. I'll have 7 gardens. That's my thing. When I am so overwhelmed, that's where I go. And so just trying to think about those things and how do I listen, right? Because those lessons are important as I try to go forward. When you said that people come with knowledge, they come with wealth. As African Americans, I'm still here able to talk, right? We are still here despite all of the things that have happened. And so how do we build from that cultural wealth? And then why I was so moved by this technology of poetry, right? So I'm going to say this, like I'm going to apply to be like a poet laureate, right? And so I see that as one way, right? Almost this technology to try to bring those sacred worlds, to try to bring that knowledge into the presence, but then also to bring the young people. So I want to do a book of poetry with young people, and again, have their wisdom and cultural knowledge a part of it. And again, this mixing and this relationship that'll happen. So hopefully it'll happen, but even if it doesn't, right, we'll still write the book of poems. But I see that just kind of as a way to help me get the structure to do it.
How beautiful, and all the best with that.
Thank you.
And just one last thing, if there might be one silver bullet, it's rehumanizing ourselves, because it seems to me that othering is the basic aspect that just creates all this damage. You know, when we look at another like they're not human, and there's so many varieties of that. And sometimes we look at ourselves that way. So then this rehumanizing our gaze of ourselves and of each other to me, that's kind of the point of entry of something that can flow and restore our relatedness and our sense of having a right to exist and to be with each other and to have something to contribute. As you say, Thomas, the right to be, to belong, and to become.
Yeah, I love it. And that's when I think about with the joy and the hope and the happiness, what it means to be human, right? And how do you experience, how does it experience? And kind of creating conditions for that to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how it touched me when you spoke about your ancestors, how sorry and sad I feel when I listen to you. It's like so painful for me to hear, and then to see how you turn, because I'm so happy also at the same time when I hear you talk about your poetry, because my sense is that your artistic expression is so amazing, and I'm so supportive of you moving in that direction. I think it's something that speaks to you in the stillness. So that's very beautiful.
Yeah. So having said it, then hopefully I'll move more into the stillness, right? You all are this container that'll allow me to move more into the stillness. Thank you.
Yeah. And so if you like, because of having many conversations, you also become like a hub in a way where many creative streams, flow together, and they alchemize in you, because you talk to that person, you talk to that, and everything inspires you. But then there is your own intelligence that creates, like, this is in this alchemical process with all of it, and it's also enriches your own path, your own thinking, feeling, sensing, vision. And I'm wondering, also throughout the years, and especially this year, of course, like, how does, like, being in that process of hosting many conversations form your own vision for, like, the collective healing? Because many people might say, listen, like, climate change is coming, we have wars around the world, and there's the threat of a nuclear strike, and there are so many things that are really, like, they look very dark and might be depressive, and so it's easy to go down into that place of, oh, it's getting more and more hopeless, which I think is also a phenomena that we see in the world rising: isolation, depression, and there's a sense of no hope. But then we, in every conversation, we actually connect to creativity to deal with it. And so I'm wondering what's your own alchemy saying now, your own learning, your own creativity in this crucible of a lot of data that came to you, and many inspirations. When you look at collective healing, or the way we can address, like, these moments on the planet where many things seem to fall apart, other things seem to rise within that kind of deconstruction of some societal forms. Maybe you can speak a little to that, your own vision, or your own whatever got inspired.
Ruby, would you like to start?
Oh, go ahead, Laura. Okay.
So several things for me. One is this trust in the process, and there's this saying that it's darkest before the dawn, and so yes, there's hopelessness, but inside of that, that's often when we end up reaching out and admitting our vulnerability and coming together. And I take the example of my people here in Mexico when we had the earthquake in 1985. people would pour out onto the streets to help each other out without needing to be directed to that. So some of the best of us comes out in the worst of times. So for me, there's a trust in that feels really beautiful, and that I keep hearing, with the people that I have spoken to. And for me personally, there's a couple of things. One is that I'm aware that I'm going to need to take some time to digest, because it's been like, a couple, 2, 3, 4 years, it's the 4th summit now of being very active. And that, I also need some time to really allow this to be articulated. But one very clear strand in my work is helping visualize the presence of trauma in systems, not just in communities that are being served, but in the systems that are wanting to serve themselves. And how much, for those of us who have also had a place of privilege, part of how trauma shows up is through numbness, is through disconnecting, is through not being able to feel the pain of others and our own pain. And, creating, safe spaces, caring spaces for us to explore that together, spaces for workers, frontline workers, for people who are in social change systems to come and find a place where they can talk about this. Because although for us, we're swimming in this water of we're clear that trauma is really necessary to be addressed, but other people are not swimming in that water the same way. So inviting others in and finding ways of inviting to those conversations, where part of the challenge with privilege is when we feel we don't have to. How can we inspire people to actually join us for this aspect of the transformation that needs to happen, which is really seeing that everybody has some trauma that we carry. And to me, it's kind of like when we first had conversations about hygiene, if somebody would tell you, if you think about the conversation, well, there's these little beings that are everywhere and they can kill you. It sounded crazy until we had a microscope and we could prove that. Well, trauma is kind of the same, trauma is everywhere. We all carry some of it. And it's not all PTSD, thank God, but we all have some part of it that it's ours to transform and heal. So let's come together and, thank God for epigenetics, that will be kind of our microscope, but it's real, so that's where I see myself going.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said about epigenetics, right? We're working on a study. I've done research on genomics, looking at how gun violence gets under the skin to create stress and things like that. And so now kind of thinking about it on the intergenerational level and doing oral histories of mothers, grandmothers, however many generations we can go back to capture those stories, both of trauma, but also of resiliency, and then to look at it kind of on a cellular level. And we talked about also even looking at the placenta, right? When mothers are pregnant and when they deliver, what information is there. And then again, having these sacred rituals, right? Because it's not just a piece of tissue that we're looking at, right? Like it's a piece of human and it's giving us information that could be critical. So I appreciate what you said about epigenetics. And I'll say for when talking to individuals, it really is a moment, I can't say it enough, of growth, right? Of expanding what I know, what I understand, what I think. And I would even say expand what I think is possible. And those who know me know that I have a vivid imagination, right? I'm always seeing, like, I can see this, I can see that. And talking to individuals, it really allowed me to see more because they were doing more. They already, some of the questions that I had, right, they have been investigating them for a long time and are at another level in terms of doing and manifesting kind of those things that could be really important around healing. So it's exciting. We have made plans to continue the talking, to continue the alchemy that will happen. And I just can't wait because it's something that's really important, right? When you're in this work, and especially for me as a Black female in a predominantly white academy, like sometimes it can get lonely, sometimes it can be, there's so much to do, right? You're tired, you're exhausted, but talking to the others, and again, having this community, as we talked about, can really give you energy, be like wind that kind of lifts you to the next level. So again, Thomas, I am so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this community.
Well, thank you both. It's so lovely. It's also lovely to listen to your condensed alchemy or processing, and I'm sure more will unfold when you have time to digest more of the process, because we were in an intense process for a long time. And I'm so happy that you are both part of the community, and I deeply enjoy our collaboration. And I love that we are doing it together, also in the quality that is between us. So that's really beautiful. So thank you both. I see our time is already pretty progressed. So that's why I would love to take this as our roundup of the conversation now. And thank you deeply from my heart. It's a very precious contribution you're both making to the world through the summit. Yeah, and it goes out to many people.
No, thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Ruby, and thanks everyone else who has been a part of this. I've learned so much from everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, and so two things. I want to give us something that I believe that also Laura and Ruby said that is important, but I think is undervalued in our world. And it came up in multiple conversations that when things look urgent, of course they're urgent, but sometimes when there is trauma stress that creates an extra urgency, then slowing down is the way to speed up. But slowing down sometimes is important, even if everything says we need to be faster. Sometimes to slow down allows us to learn what we didn't learn from the past, like bottom-up innovation, to harvest the learning that is still frozen in the trauma in order to move forward. And so digesting is, and having moments of stillness is often undervalued in a world that is driven by progress and often also destruction of our natural resources because of that over stressful progress. And that's why I would love us to have a moment. We will come back to our ceremonial part, and that we take a moment of silence. We'll let this conversation rest a bit to include maybe also our bodies again, and how what has been shared can land in all of us a little bit deeper, because our bodies are the fertile ground for our learning and for the future to sprout in us. And so that we take a moment of silence, then I will do a toning for a few minutes, just some sounds to let yourself be carried away into your inner layers, as Kim said at the beginning. And you can just listen to the sounds and follow whatever unfolds for you. And then Kim will leave us with another beautiful poem, and for us to round up our conversation today. So for a moment, before we go into the toning, after the toning, we will also keep a moment of silence, and then Kim will start. And so take a moment with your own breath. Like, it's great that we have that great friend, our breath, that is with us from the first moments after our birth. It's a great way to connect to your body, and also to feel yourself that there is a global movement. We've reached so many people throughout these 4 years, and we have had amazing, meaningful conversations with people that run amazing projects throughout this world. So the change and the positive impact of healing and liquefying our world is happening. It's not going to come, it is already here. And that we can feel, everyone can feel, we can feel our place in it. However much at the beginning or progressed we are, if we choose, we are part of. And we can take responsibility to be part of and contribute, either through our own healing, through the way we are witnessing, we are relating every day in the small acts, not only in the big projects, but in the way we go to the grocery store, in the way we are with our families, in the way we are in our local community at work, and then of course in the way we run our projects. All of it matters. Take a moment how you see yourself as part of that collective healing movement that you are already on, we're already part of.
Thank you, Thomas. Let's continue our inner listening with a couple of poems. The first by Deena Metzger and the second by Mary Oliver. There are those who are trying to set fire to the world. We are in danger. There is time only to work slowly. There is no time not to love. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins out of his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through that door full of curiosity, wondering what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness. And so I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I think of time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life like a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, ending as all music does, towards silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride, married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and fearful or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. When it's over, I want to say all my life I was a bride, married to amazement. I was the bridegroom, taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing or fearful or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Thank you, Jami Sieber, for this music from the forthcoming album, Feast of Losses. Thank you, Mary Oliver, for the poem When Death Comes. Thank you, Deena Metzger, for the poem Song. Thank you, Thomas and Laura and Ruby, for the beautiful birthing conversation. And now I will hand it back to Laura for some announcements.
Kim, thank you so much for the way that your poetry offerings are so deeply touching and help us become a body of connected hearts. And thank you, Thomas, for facilitating this wonderful opening ceremony event for the summit. And thank you, Ruby, and thank you, Angel, for your wisdom and your insights today. And to all of you who are listening to us, a reminder that there is already a lot available for you to enjoy in the summit, such as music performance, 6 integration practices, as well as 6 speaker talks, including a poet conversation, are already available today. Each day's speaker talks are available for 48 hours to stream for free. Over the next 9 days, we'll be releasing 6 or more talks each day. By signing up for the free summit, you will receive an email announcing the speaker lineup for each day. If you are just finding us and have not yet signed up for free access, please visit the website collectivetraumasummit.com. We also invite you to tell others about the summit. Anyone can join at any time throughout the event. If you would like to have full access to all the recordings from the summit, you can purchase the Collective Trauma Healing Upgrade Package, which includes lifetime access to over 50 talks in video, audio, and written form, as well as more than 20 speaker bonus gifts, a self-study course with Thomas on the foundations of collective trauma, and access to a 2-hour healing ancestral trauma workshop with Thomas, all at a savings of 50% off during the summit. You will find the offer to purchase on the website collectivetraumasummit.com, as well as in the emails that we send. Thank you to the summit's partner organization, the Pocket Project, a nonprofit organization and global initiative that aims to restore the fragmentation in our communities and societies by addressing and supporting the integration of collective and intergenerational trauma. You can learn more by visiting the website pocketproject.org. Thank you to all of the amazing contributors, the speakers, the panelists, the poets, musicians, and integration practice guides. And thank you to our entire beloved production and support team. We hope you'll join us for our next live event tomorrow, a live performance by musician David Berkeley. We hope you enjoy the